We have a lot of species, like we have the croakers, the shiny nose, the grunters, and so on.
Fishing villages and fishing grounds include Lagos, Ogun, Delta, Rivers, and Cross River states. The coastal shallow waters have a high fishing rate during the rainy season. But poor waste management is a big challenge for the coastal line and the marine region of the country.
In the shallow waters, which is the area that is being exploited by the industrial fisheries, we have a lot of fish. We have, as I mentioned, we have croakers, you have grunters, you have shiny nose or thread fins, you have mullets, shrimps, you have crabs, you have octopuses, you have squids and all that species that are available.
One of the major impacts that it has is that, or what happens is that when pollutants are released into the environment, by virtue of the natural composition of the fish body parts, which is largely protein and lipid, the fish, some especially the fatty fish, has the tendency of absorbing, of bioaccumulating part of this waste. And what they do is that when these wastes are accumulated in the body or in the flesh or the edible part of this fish, when higher animals feed on them, now it leads to what is known as biomagnification, because it continues, the cycle continues. So we end up having the pollution, the pollutants that have been absorbed into the fish now being transferred, and it can lead to disease, outbreak of disease or disease body among the human population.
Because of industrialization and increase in population of humans, there's been a lot of introduction of pollutants of different form into the water body. And the organisms in the water body, there's what we call the food web. In the water ecosystem, you have different kinds of organisms, including fish. And the lower organisms, such as the zooplanktons, are being fed by the fishes. Now, when there is this introduction in an awesome manner that it overwhelms the ability of the water system to degenerate or biodegrade these pollutants, it comes in contact with these zooplanktons, they accumulate them, that's what we call bioaccumulation, and this is taken up by the fishes in the food web. And by the time they do that, it concentrates in the fishes, that's bioconcentration or bioaccumulation, and eventually when the body system cannot sequestrate the material out of their body, the pollutants, then the fishes build them up. Now it can cause damages to the gills, the different parts of the body, and even the muscle. At the same time, it can affect other forms of species of fishes in the ecosystem. And at the same time, it can lead to loss in biodiversity. So the richness in the ecosystem is reduced as a result of these emissions which you find in the environment entering the water system or the ecosystem where we find these fishes. So it's quite overwhelming in this our time because of the indiscriminate discharge of these pollutants into the water body, affecting not only the fishes but lower organisms, and at the end of the day it moves on to the higher stages such as humans because of biomagnification.
The agricultural transformation agenda of the government is now repositioning both the marine and fisheries sectors to boost the economy. The government recently acquired a new fishing vessel worth €10.1 million for the Nigerian Institute of Oceanography and Marine Research in a bid to promote and ensure sustainability in the fisheries management in the country.
sea, this is an area that is not being exploited by the industrial shell fisheries. For now, we have a lot of demersal resources, but NEOMA, as an institution, has carried out a research survey that we found a resource or a species, a group of species called the Ariomas, in abundance, far out there beyond 200-meter depth, that is of economic significance. If fully exploited, it can sustain a full industry. That is for the deep sea, only one major species that is there. Another species that is out there deeper in the deep sea, that is under the category of the pelagic species. We have the lanternfishes. These lanternfishes are out there. Why they call them lanternfishes? Because they have bioluminescent organs. They have light organs on their bodies, and even at night, they are called stars of the sea. They emit light. So deeper offshore, we have lanternfishes, we have tuna and tuna-like fishes and other species. Also, I forgot to mention, we have a lot of shark species too that are not being exploited, but few shark species are supposed to be exploited. Others are under, they are categorized under for conservation purposes because they are threatened and endangered. But there are some species that could be exploited. Well, for economic purposes, yes, it has not been exploited, except the tuna species, particularly or the pelagic species. These are highly migratory species. They move around. They don't have borders. They move between Nigeria and Ghana and everywhere. And Ghana has a good industry for exploitation of these resources. So they might be exploiting it, but in Nigeria we are not really exploiting it as a country.
So if we start exploiting this, what are the opportunities that will come into the country in terms of exchange, in terms of employment, in terms of new research on these species?
Well, the first thing is there is a lot of effort, fishing effort within the shallow water areas. But if you go deep sea, and a lot of people are encouraged to go there, there will be less pressure on the shallow water that is already being stressed or being exploited. That is one thing. That one serves some conservation purposes. The other one is that, as I mentioned before, there are resources that are big enough to sustain an industry. That if fully exploited, a lot of vessels going in, then it means there will be a lot of people working on vessels, that is a lot of vessels coming in, and then whatever they bring, now Nigeria imports about 1.7 million metric tons of fish. But if these resources that is now not being exploited, if it is being harnessed, then, it's being exploited, then it means more food for Nigeria. We don't need to depend mostly on this. The ariomas I told you, some of them has been done. They can eat, just like sardine and all this stuff. They can eat it. These are fishes that are of very high. I've been on board a vessel where we caught almost about 15 tons from a 30 minutes trawl. This is a good indication that these resources are there in abundance. And if fully exploited, it can sustain an industry. That it will generate revenue, it will provide food, and it will provide, support other ancillary services that are going into that industry.
The way I see, it's just like we say, structure and function. Where you find they have different species that have the ability to survive in shallow water and deep water bodies, and they have different physiology. Probably in their in the structure of their physiology, there's a difference in their enzyme action. In all forms of structure, they find themselves different. One, such kind of fishes, for example, in the shallow water, will be able to attract or get oxygen from the shallow waters easily than the ones in the deeper. So there need to be structures that will help to absorb such nutrients, even in the shallow waters and in the deep waters.
Nigeria is blessed with a coastline of 853 kilometers with abundant aquatic resources.
Climate is changing every time. And when we are now looking at impact of climate change is mostly felt within the shore areas, inshore area or very shallow area, and particularly also the coastal installations and all this stuff. The composition of the sea hardly changes, particularly in the deep sea area. But within the shallow areas, this can drastically change because the level can change. even areas that are known to be a bit freshwater or brackish can now be turned to marine. These are the areas where you feel the impact much. But in the deeper sea area, it's a bit more calm, more stable when you are looking at the impact of climate change on these resources. But the only area I know it may have impact is probably if some of the life history stages or life history of some of these deeper sea species is dependent on the it's dependent on the shallow or inshore area, then that is the area that it can affect the recruitment back into deeper area. But if their life history for some of this in which research will still need to be done to understand the life history of some of these species, if we're able to establish that most of them does not, many of them do not have dependency or recruitment from shallow areas, then it means the effect of climate change might not really impact them significantly. It will mostly impact the areas that are shallow or that are close to shoreline, where you have a lot of inputs and a lot of things can change rapidly.
Shrimp's export is of great importance to the fisheries subsector in Nigeria. Nigerian shrimps are considered to be among the best in the world and at present generate foreign exchange worth over $65 million annually.
Nigeria exports shrimp to United States, to Europe, and it earns about, it runs into millions of dollars that is generated every year. If this water is very bad, as people are talking about it, I don't think we will have an opportunity of sending this out. But the Nigeria environment generally is still stable and within the permissible limit, but except for areas where you have that are localized or where you have these point sources that are coming out. Take for example, if there is an oil spillage around Niger Delta, in some areas in Niger Delta, well, the fishes within the vicinity, particularly the creeks and so on, might be unsuitable. But it's not as if the whole of Niger Delta fishes are bad.
The recent strategy of the Ministry of Agriculture in its first part plan is to produce 1 million metric tons of table-sized fish that will put the country at 70% self-sufficiency in fish supply. The Ministry of Agriculture also believes the country cannot totally depend on imported fish for its daily usage.